Okay, welcome everybody to Selling Services as Solutions, hosted by Integrator Support. My name is Sharon Shaw, and I am the president of Integrator Support, so I want to welcome you here today. I know that your time is valuable, so the fact that you're spending this little bit of time with me today is very much appreciated. I'll try to make it as valuable as we can, so that way it's a good way of spending this hour. I'm actually expecting about 30 minutes of presentation, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and type those into your questions and answer queue down in the right-hand corner of your chat feature, and we will field those as we get going. So with that, I just want to thank you again for your time. Also, this presentation will be recorded, so should you have somebody else in your team that you would like to attend this presentation that's unable to do so today, it will be hosted and online for you at your convenience, and you'll all receive a copy of that link as soon as we wrap up the presentation today. So again, thank you all. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some background and why are we here? Why did you attend this webinar today? Why is it that this is the topic of discussion? And really, as Integrator Support is now really launching our dealer program, one of the first things that I wanted to tackle was this question, because selling services is very different compared to selling the traditional kind of integration and installation type services that you might be used to doing. A lot of the integrators that we work with are in this process right now of looking to or planning to or trying to figure out how to go about getting into the managed services business. And one of those major things is the commitment. How do we commit? How do we get the buy-in at our organizations? How do we show to our customer, to our community, that we are a service-based company and that we are not just a contractor and an installer, that we're different? So that's really one of the key challenges. And so we've broken up the topic of these challenges into these 5 different categories, which we're going to talk about. The first is consultative selling. Consultative selling and service-based selling are very, very similar. They work really nicely together. So that's an important element to any kind of relationship where you are trying to continue to provide value over time to a customer. Also, the importance of solution-based sales and centering your entire sales position around the solution and to the problems that you solve. The do's and don'ts of proposal presentations, what works and what doesn't. Sometimes you're going to learn this by trial and error. You're going to bring something up and you're going to wish you hadn't, or your customer is going to ask a question that you wish you had had the answer to or that you answered differently. But a lot of the stuff that's practiced in other industries that sell managed services, it's really kind of applicable to what we're trying to accomplish here today. So we'll talk about some of those things. Also, the keys to calculating return on investment. There are break-even points and different ways of people, going in and communicating the value proposition that services have to offer. But it's not just the value that they receive. It's also an investment on their part. So how do you show them that it's worth their money and then some? And sometimes they're going to compare it line by line to maybe a traditional model without services. And the key here, guys, which we'll talk about some more, is believing that the service truly is the solution and that any investment without the service behind it, I wouldn't say is worthless, but it's not going to yield the same results. Also, the true cost of doing nothing. So if your customer says, you know what, I'm satisfied with what we have, we really don't need anything, how do you show them or communicate to them what they're missing out on by not leveraging their existing system to add services to them? So those are some of the keys that we think are holding some of these sales up in that sales cycle process. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now you'll notice I didn't talk anything about me or what we're here to do in general as a service provider for you guys as integrators. So we'll talk about that stuff at the end, but I'm pretty sure it will be evident by the time this presentation is over to you why Integrator Support is in this business and how we can help your organization. So the steps to consultative selling. This is really, it's a lot simpler than I think some people make it out to be. There are a lot of classes on it. I've actually attended a few classes. John Nemirovsky with Niskaya presented a class along with Frank DeFina from Samsung. Did an excellent job talking about consultative selling and what that process is and really defining that process. It's really just a step-by-step thing. And, the key really to consultative selling is being able to put yourself in the shoes of your customer. So how do you do that? It sounds a lot simpler than maybe it is, but it's really that basic. If somebody is going to consult you in something, consider if I was going to hire a consultant, what do I expect from them? I expect them to understand me and my needs, okay? In order for them to give any good advice to me, they have to know where I'm at, what are my current coordinates, and how, where am I trying to get to? And then they can help navigate and get you where you want to be. So they have to understand you. They have to have answers, ideas, and a fresh perspective. When you hire a consultant, you don't hire somebody that's just like you and thinks exactly the same way you think, or is, already doing exactly what you do every day. Because if you do that, it's going to be more of the same. You need somebody who's going to come in and have a 40,000-foot point of view and be able to give you some ideas where you're stuck in the trees and they're able to see the entire forest and they're able to show you exactly where you need to go. You need them to be honest. If you hire a consultant, you need them to tell you some of the harsh realities that maybe you're facing. So if I'm going to hire someone to tell me how to work out better, I'm going to hire a personal trainer. That's a consultant. I need them to tell me that I'm being lazy. I need them to tell me that I can do what I need to do. And, that honesty and security is critical. Because if you're not honest, if you say, oh, yeah, the technology can do that, no problem, and then it turns out it can't, or you agree to provide a certain service that your service provider can't provide, you're left with egg on your face. And that trust is out the window. So being honest in that consultative selling process is really, really critical. Demonstrating concern. In order for a consultant to be effective, they need to demonstrate their concern. So they need to think about ways that this is going to impact their customer, or in this case, if we're the ones being consulted, they need to be able to show us some of the hidden gotchas that maybe we didn't know about, some of the things that are going to pop out and get us down the road that they've seen happen over and over again that maybe we didn't anticipate. They need to guide us, and they need to demonstrate concern for those things and not just try to make a buck. They need to stay connected. So the key with staying connected with any kind of consulting customer, for example, for those of you who were at the PSA Tech event in May, there was a presentation by a gentleman named Evan Hackle. He runs an organization called Engage Consulting. And what he does is he helps cooperatives and other types of groups, franchises, things like that, work on their value proposition and keeping their members satisfied. Now, coming in and doing a presentation one time isn't going to help. It might get you to think outside the box for 30 days, but I mean, there are so many different studies that show that people who go to a class or, attend a meeting, they walk away and there's a few things they caught, the few things that registered, but the vast majority of what was talked about is out the window. So to really be effective in that consulting kind of manner, you need to be able to continuously connect with your customer all the time, which means email programs, which means informing them as new services and new technologies come about, making sure that they know you are the source of that knowledge. You need to become like John Honovich to your customers. Whenever a new IP camera comes out, I look at ipvideomarket.info to see what John Honovich thinks about it. Okay, it's really interesting because they are the source. They are that key resource. They're unbiased. You know that they're going to test it left, up, down, right, every way they can. They're going to see if that product works the way it's supposed to work. Okay, so it's really interesting when you're trying to consult somebody how staying connected and continuing to feed information to them gets them to be engaged over time. and you no longer do that knock on the door, try to sell something, oh, it didn't work, okay, cross them off the list. You've got to continue to provide value over time. And that's really what makes a service provider different from just an installer. So now that you know, or we've thought about what we expect from a consultant, the next step really is just to be that. So how do you? How do you understand your customer and their needs? You listen. You ask questions. And knowing what questions to ask sometimes is a hurdle when you're getting into a new offering like this. But that's where we can help. Get trained. Do things like you are today so that you understand, what can come up. What are the typical questions that I need to anticipate? And what are the questions I need to ask them so I can truly gather their data and understand their coordinate and where they are and where they want to be. So you need to have the answers, the ideas, and the fresh perspective. So, having that stuff, having the information, you guys know the business. You know what products work and what don't. You understand, from a security standpoint, what best practices are. But when you're conveying services, okay, you need to be very confident and you need to be passionate about what you're offering, because that is what sells service, is knowing that they're going to, every time they pick up the phone or every time they're going to take and use your service offering, that they have somebody like you that's passionate and confident in their offering that's backing them up. So in the honesty category, what can you do as a salesperson? If you don't know the answer to that question, just wait to answer it. Just be honest. Just say, hey, you know what, I think that integration is complete, but let me just double check for you. Or, you know what, I think, we can do that kind of an announcement under that kind of a setting, but let me just make sure, let me check with my technical team, make sure that the speakers and the amps are adequate for that. Things like that. Just as many of those surprises as you can eliminate on the front end by asking the right questions, the better. When demonstrating concern and listening, you need to look for their cues. If they start to get, body language shows that they're maybe a little agitated, a little hesitant, maybe they're getting bored with what you're talking about, draw attention to it. Say, hey, you look like you don't feel very comfortable with hosted systems. What is it about hosting that makes you uncomfortable? And just air the laundry. Get it out there. Be an open book. Staying connected. So again, it's that ongoing communication. And sometimes for small companies that don't have a marketing person on staff, having an ongoing communication program is a lot more difficult than it might seem. And that's something that we can help with. But what I'm getting at is even if it's picking up the phone, even if it's every month I call every one of my customers that I've installed something for in the last 3 years, just to make sure that they're satisfied, just to make sure they haven't had anybody else knock on their door and try to sell them something that we can offer them. You need to stay in front of them from a sales standpoint. And then, here's one of the real keys too. Sorry to get a little bit off track, but this RMR thing, okay, recurring revenue. Yeah, we get it, right? We get it. It helps level out the peaks and valleys. It increases the value of the company. The most important thing, though, about services and recurring revenue, aside from the dollars and the value of those dollars, truly is that they are sticky. The relationships become sticky. And what is sales if not just a bunch of relationships? And what kind of a salesperson does that not matter for? So staying connected and staying in the relationship, that means that even though Susie hasn't called me for the last 2 months, I'm going to pick up the phone and call her again just to make sure that she's doing well. That's a relationship. It takes effort, okay? So instead of, and I think the challenge we've seen is that the sales teams that are being introduced to recurring revenue services are saying, well, great, yeah, this is going to help the owner of the company. This is, it's another thing to do. But, what value am I going to get in selling $200 a month? How is that going to benefit me or put more money in my pocket? And that's human nature, right, is kind of questioning that impact and the value it has on me as a salesperson. Well, the key here is understanding that the services are worth that extra monthly payment to your customer. We could talk about RMR all day long, but the key is, unless the services solve problems and are of value to the end user, it's a moot point. It doesn't matter. There has to be a value there in order for them to pay that monthly fee for it to be worth it, okay? So the thing that you guys need to really grasp as you go into this, and this ties in nicely to the next bullet point, is really having a solution-based sales process and knowing that the services are that solution. And if anything else, it's showing your dedication, that relationship, and that because you're connected with them by some sort of service that's ongoing, that you're always there. You're always there. You're always connected. So let's move on to the next topic, which is the importance of solution-based sales. So when you're selling services, the service has to be the solution. You can't go into a customer and say, hey, you know, I've got this great access control system. It has so many readers, so many, you know, panels, you know, push to exit, you know, whatever kind of additional features you want to throw on there. And then say, oh, and by the way, if you'd like, we can, you know, do this on a hosted basis. No, that doesn't work. The hosted element of any access control system that you're trying to offer needs to be the solution. And similarly with video monitoring, if you have a customer that you go into and you show them, you know, here's your video surveillance system, here's your DVR, here's everything that you guys have or that you're going to need for recording and having that video on hand. But you know what we can also do is monitor it. It sounds like an add-on in both cases. It's like, well, I mean, why do I need that? Why do I need, you know, to pay something up front and buy something and then continue paying out to you? No, it doesn't. I don't think I need that. I'll pass. You know, it's easy to do that. You haven't articulated the value. So the key has to be, what are their problems? And then you come back and you solve them. You work your other way. You say, okay, so your problem is that people are vandalizing your building. That's your problem. And you want to have some video so that way, you know, when it happens again, you can see who did it. Well, does that solve it? No, not really. It gives you more information. It doesn't solve it. They could still come in, even though there's a camera there, and vandalize that building. It doesn't really solve it. But if you offer them a service where they use the video so that in real time, somebody is looking down at that facility and they can see exactly what's going on, and they can intervene in real time. Now that could solve that problem. So you go in and you say, well, what we offer is a video monitoring solution. And we can do this, this, and this to help prevent this vandalism from happening again. Oh, how does that work? Well, you need these cameras. You need this, you know, if you'd like some on-site recording, here's a solution. If you'd like to have recording anytime, anywhere, we can do it in the cloud for you. Oh, okay. That is a solution. So once you've identified the problems, you connect the solutions to the problems, and you start with the solution. But the key in any, again, consultative selling is incorporating the input they just gave you with what their problems are and sharing their perspective and taking it back and identifying how you solve those problems. And so you start with the solution and you summarize, well, you told me this was your concern and this is what we're doing for you. Pretty basic concept. As a salesperson out there doing this, you need to truly understand the advantages of hosted and managed services. But not only do you need to understand it so you can answer questions and stuff, more importantly, you need to believe in it. You have to believe in the services. You have to go in there saying, this is who we are. We provide services. And if they just really don't want, I know there are a lot of integrators now starting to say if there is no service attached to this project, we're not doing it. That's not us. And you might say, well, wait a second. I mean, there goes, 98% of our business. Can't do that. Well, there's a way to bridge that gap, okay? The key is with any new installation, new system that you're installing, you could do something like, okay, that's fine. We can give you the cameras. You can monitor those cameras on your own time. That's fine. Here's what you need to do that. And, just so you know, we want you to sign this waiver saying that I need you to show that I did present the monitoring solution to you and that you're opting out of that opportunity. And it shows them that they're losing something. Well, wait a second, what am I opting out of? Wait, what could I have that I'm not going to have anymore? The other thing is that we'll get into when we get to the proposal process is really how the dollars and cents work. So that's another key aspect, and so I don't want to go too far ahead of myself, but we'll talk about that next too. But you need to demonstrate your company's partnership with them when you're talking about solutions. So you have to demonstrate the way that you're going to support them like nobody else will. You're going to have to show them that this is our company culture. This is what identifies us. And that means that if you have a hosted access control system and there's something wrong, we'll take care of it. That means that we are aware of anything happening as far as updates before you are. And that means that we're going to be able to do a lot of things remotely and quicker and faster. And you need to just show them how these services add value to your partnership and what you're able to provide to them. Now, the two images here, you might be wondering, well, what is this about? But, I mean, take your choice. If you're going to be driving somewhere, would you rather take the busy street where there's all kinds of traffic, all kinds of pedestrians jumping out to get you, or would you rather take a highway? So when you think about outsourcing, okay, outsourcing kind of has a bad rap because of, people that are sending things overseas and things like that. But work with me on this for a second. Either I can do it myself. I can navigate. I have to keep my eyes out. I have to make sure that nobody's going to walk in front of my vehicle. I need to make sure that, I'm not hindering anybody else and that nobody's in my way. Or I could take the easy street and I could just focus on getting where I need to go. And then as I need to, a road sign will pop up. If I need a rest area, a sign will tell me where to get off. You guys need to make their world more like driving on a highway than driving on a side street. And that's really what managed services can do. The do's and don'ts of proposal presentations. So don't be caught off guard. I think some people get surprised by maybe the questions that they get from their customer. And maybe when they go in and they're presenting their proposal to do services, the customer says, well, wait a second, what is this monthly fee for? And how long am I committed? What are you asking me to do? And then they have to backtrack and kind of explain why this is the way it is. That's a lot harder than if you manage the expectation before that presentation. If you say, well, we're a service company. These are the services we provide. We have the engineering staff, the technology support team out in the field, the project management necessary to make sure that the system is installed and deployed effectively. And on top of that, we provide these services. And so what's going to happen when I come in and present the proposal is you're going to have a monthly payment solution. And that monthly payment solution ties you to us. And you're going to have a partner. When you commit to these services, we're committing to a relationship with you. And we're going to always be there to help you. So manage the expectation and then do what you told them you were going to do. So that way, when they get that proposal and it has a monthly fee on it, it doesn't surprise them. Okay? Manage the expectation up front. Don't present the service as an add-on lead with the service. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but that is so key. Because if you go in and you say, here is your upfront capital investment. It's going to cost you $50,000 for us to install the system, to do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then by the way, we can offer this additional service if you'd like it. No, I think that's okay. Now with a maintenance contract, that works, right? Because a maintenance contract, you need something to maintain. You're not going to go in and sell somebody a maintenance contract if they don't have any hardware that needs to be maintained. But you absolutely need to have that service be the forefront. Then do not present more than one option. Don't go in and say, this is, if you want kind of old school, here's old school. But if you want new school, here's new school. Because it's so easy for them to just do what's comfortable, do what they know. And it, just like you guys, right? I mean, this is a new offering. You're being asked to go out and sell. It's hard. Change is hard. Change is hard. So you need to make it as simple, painless as possible. So you make it a highway. And you talk about a monthly payment solution and why that makes sense. So project financing I haven't really talked about yet is really one of the key elements here when you're selling sales or when you're selling services. You think about the residential burglar alarm model. Well, we come in, we give you a bunch of hardware for free or at a very small minimal cost. They lose money on the front end in the installation, and they make it up over time because, wow, well, the value I'm getting right now, I'm getting a steal for all this stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's worth the $10 a month or $20 a month. Okay, that makes sense. But if you're selling video IQ cameras and high-end access control systems like Brevo, you're not going to be able to afford to fund that forever. You'll go broke trying to self-finance that. So the options for you guys to offer just a simple monthly payment is a little bit different than the ADTs maybe of the world. What you could be doing is going in with a project financing where you find a payment program that we have available to you. It's really simple. You calculate their labor costs and all the stuff you would normally do for the front end, and you turn that into a monthly payment. And then you add on the managed services costs, the ongoing hosting fees and remote monitoring fees. And then you take that sum and you say, you get that $50,000 system. You get all of our support. You get your interactive monitoring that is not only going to, help with recording the vandalism issue you've been having on that facility, it's going to stop it or intervene in real time. And you're going to get all of this for $1,000 a month. Okay, $1,000 a month. So if I, go backwards, I can calculate the interest. I can figure out how much that system would have cost me. I can do that. I absolutely can. And sometimes they will. And sometimes they still might prefer to pay up front for the equipment and then commit to a monthly managed services fee. However, there are benefits to you guys as integrators to having them on a project financing program. And that's a presentation we gave at PSA Tech, which I don't want to steal up the rest of this time today talking about. But to make a long story short, it gives you a life cycle management program for their security system. So in IT, that's a really common term. Every year we replace so many of our laptops, we replace so many of our desktops, we update the server, we do this, and then we do it again the next year. So then, every 3 years, things are fresh. Makes sense. Why not in security? Why not add cameras on a kind of regular basis? Or why not improve your system over time? Well, because it was bought as an upfront thing, and you own it, and it works. It's not broken. It's fine. But when you have a hosted element to it or a managed element to it, and you're paying monthly for it, you start to see the possibilities over time of how you could continue to leverage it and get more out of it. And so, when you go in with that monthly payment option, what can happen is say they get a 3-year finance, and 2.5 years in, you're notified by the bank that says, hey, by the way, Joe, your customer is going to be, paying his last payment for the upfront investment he made some years ago. So now is your chance to go in and say, hey, Joe, I heard that you're coming towards the end of your term. What we'd like to do is add a few more cameras. We could do this. We could update that. And it's going to continue to cost you the exact same amount that you've been paying all this time. They can budget and know exactly how much security is going to cost them this year, next year, the year after that. It's huge. And there's a blanket umbrella policy or approval policy where once they get that first finance, if they want to add stuff down the road, they don't have to go through complete underwriting again. As long as they're current on their payments and they've had good payment history on just that one finance, they're good. So that upsell process, keeping them, again, that stickiness, that connection to you is vital. And that monthly payment solution is the answer. So one of the questions I get a lot is, how do you calculate return on investment? When you are, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. When you are hosting something, what's the return on investment as a hosted system as compared to an on-site system? How do I know the cost difference between the two? And how can I show that it's worth this continuous monthly payment over time to the customer? Because it seems like after 18 months they break even, and then all of a sudden the monthly payment puts them upside down. So why should I go in with a hosted system as compared to an on-site? I actually asked Mike Taylor, the president or vice president of business development, I think, for Brevo the other day. In the access control concept, how does this work? Well, with a hosted version, you don't have a server on site. These are backwards for some reason. Oops. Sorry about that, guys. I am going to switch this out. I don't know why that happened. There we go. I knew something wasn't right. Okay, so with an on-site system, there's a server that they need to purchase, and maintain. There's licenses that they need to buy up front. If they want web portal type access through a browser, they need either a web server or some sort of a Citrix connection there at the site. They're also taking up real estate and space in that rack room, that server room, and consuming power. And the upgrades for the system need to be done. Now, a lot of times they'll say, well, I get free upgrades with the contract on the access control. However, they're still having to pay for the labor when you guys go out and do it, or you're paying for it if it's under a maintenance contract. So it's costing you guys as integrators money to provide those upgrades. And they can be painful, right? They can be painful if they're not done right. With a hosted system, they don't have to invest in the server. They don't have to buy the licenses. They don't have to allocate overhead to managing that server. They don't have to pay for annual support agreements because it's included in that hosted fee. The upgrades are done automatically one time, and they just see a new clean interface when they log in, so it's convenient. So those are some of the keys in calculating the ROI and making sure you don't miss any of those hidden costs. Also, the fact that with managed services now we're talking about, not just hosted, but say for interactive video monitoring, to do that in-house, it's expensive. They need to have somebody there all the time. They're streaming all of that video into that one central room, which the bandwidth is extensive for that. It's less efficient because what happens is, many studies show that operators get distracted, or they lose their focus, rather, after about 15 to 20 minutes of staring at a bunch of screens. And they're unable to identify key things that they're supposed to be looking for after that period of time. So not only are they expensive and costing them tons of money, but at that point they become ineffective. So how could they either reallocate that person to be more visible throughout the facility, and then instead of having them sit in that back room, have an expert manage the video when the video matters? Also, the traditional model is forensic, primarily in nature for video. If they're not paying somebody to sit in a command center and monitor their video, then they're just storing it somewhere. And then what happens when something goes wrong and they need to find the video? They have to watch it all. They have to find what they're looking for. It's a painful process. And even with fancy VMS systems, it can be very time-consuming, and it's very frustrating. So when you have interactive video monitoring services or managed video, it's more affordable because you're not paying upwards of $175,000 a year for one guard 24/7, 365. It's more effective because it's based on events. So the operators are looking at the situation as it unfolds. They know exactly what they're looking for, and they intervene. So it makes it more effective, and it's proactive because of that as well. So the key to consider is, well, what if, how do I really calculate ROI? And the ROI calculation is quite simple. It's basically taking their investment, right, and figuring out how can they make money off of that investment. So you need to backtrack and say, well, what was it costing them not having this in the first place? So if you had a break-in, what was the cost of that? So this particular example is a true cost of doing nothing. And I was talking to a gentleman on the airplane actually recently who has a Tractor Supply business. And I asked him, I said, oh, okay, so you store, obviously your equipment outdoors. He said, yeah. I said, that's interesting. I'm like, have you ever had any issues with people stealing your equipment? He says, yeah, well, not my particular branch, but the one about 15 miles away has had, several issues. I said, so how do you handle it? Well, we put GPS tracking units on all of our machines, and so that way if they're not where they're supposed to be, we can find them again. Okay, and what losses have you incurred? Well, before we did the GPS thing, this is how much we lost. Since we've done the GPS thing, there's still all this damage done. They ruined the fence. We had to completely put up a new gate. And he just starts rattling off kind of the pain. I said, yeah, that's interesting. So in addition to the damage and the equipment itself that was lost, how much time and overhead did it cost you to go in and repair that gate and manage that and talk to the police? And, oh, gosh, it was a bear. I was working 60-hour weeks until that was resolved. And how much did that impact, maybe your workforce? Well, I had to dump all this other stuff on this guy, and he made mistakes, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, what if a customer came by there and wanted to rent the particular machine that was missing? Well, geez, I never thought about that. I only have one lift. I only have one this. So if they came by and I didn't have that, I would just have to send them down the road and hope they're willing to work with my guy 15 miles away. Okay? I got all that fact. I got all those facts, and I was able to take, all of that information. And the key is there is once you gather that and you ask these key questions, you can then find the true cost of what's going on in their world. And then you can come back and you can say, no, this is not a guarantee. We're not an insurance policy. But we can do this, this, and this to be more proactive and prevent these things from happening again. Okay, so that's one example. Another example is property management. Very similar. But, the key things that I want you to think about is how does this impact the end user and their business? That's their key. How can I be more efficient? How can I focus on my job? And instead of worrying about security issues, I can worry about getting new customers to come in and rent my machine. In the property management example, having their facility managers truly focus on improving the facility, making it better, showing customer service and making the tenants feel really, really at home and welcome. Access control is such a pain for property management firms because they have to have somebody physically go out on site, make the changes. It's all based on a whim. Whenever their tenants decide to fire somebody, hire somebody, whatever, they've got to drop what they're doing, go in and handle that. So A, they could do a hosted service where that allows them to do it from anywhere, handle schedules, things like that, delete a user. Or they could go one step further where they don't even have to do it. they could have it managed. You guys could provide the management. And all they have to do is pick up the phone or send an email, send a fax, however you guys prefer to get that information. And think about what it does to them. If a property management firm was the one whose building was being vandalized, it makes their tenants feel unwelcome. It makes them feel embarrassed. So as soon as their lease comes due, they're going to be looking elsewhere. It puts a bad image on that building. If you have vacancies or trying to get new tenants in there, it's an eyesore. It makes it unattractive. So what does that do to their brand? Well, that property management company clearly, doesn't take care of their facilities. They don't care, right? No, they should be going above and beyond to make their facilities the place to be. And you guys can really help them with that. So that's the end of the presentation on the topic that we were here to talk about today. A couple more things that I wanted to show you, though, are some of the ways where, what are the next steps? How can I get started in this? So really what we're here to do at Integrator Support is partner with you. Just like a service provider, as you guys would become, partner with you and make sure that from an ongoing basis, from the beginning, getting you guys trained, getting you guys the dealer program that you need, getting you launched, all the way through making sure that your existing customers are happy, coming up with new services, new ideas, new ways to make sure that they are going to stay with you and be committed. Getting you guys competitive prices for all of the services that we offer is key, because we could provide as much value as we want, but if you're not competitive, then that doesn't hurt, but that doesn't help us either. So making sure that you guys are competitive when you're out there selling these services. So some of the next steps here, we have a 90-day implementation program. And you guys will all receive this information via email after the presentation today. And basically the 90-day implementation program is pretty straightforward. It's a 2-week prep where we get your logo from you. We set up all of the different marketing campaigns and things that we're going to deliver. You guys hire, allocate, you decide who's going to be offering these services. We get you trained, get the whole team on board. Then we start using the marketing program so that your customers are aware of what's going on. We start scheduling weekly conference calls with you guys to see what's happened out there as you're trying to sell these services, and provide continuous feedback to you and continuous information, feeding you value. Just like IP Video Market's constantly coming up with another camera to go and analyze and give you a report on, or update you on video analytic lawsuits or whatever else that you could imagine. The news, we're going to continue to feed you guys information that's valuable. And same for your customers. We have a bunch of stuff in the can that we can help push to your customers and keep them informed as well. We have a sales manual, a very simplified estimator and price book, and consistent follow-up on leads. You're going to have someone there being there to support your team, keep them on track, and make sure that as you guys run into hurdles, that there's someone there to help them overcome those objectives. And identifying and targeting the lowest hanging fruit, figuring out what applications have been the most successful this far, and how can we go after those in our own territory. The dealer marketing program, right now what we're promoting is a 90-day ramp-up. So it's a phase 1, 2, and 3. Each phase is 1 month, and it's a weekly touch point with your customers. So it's introducing the new services. It's making sure that they know some of the key benefits and value propositions to the services that you offer, offering webinars to your customer base where it's completely generic. We won't brand it with our logo or anything, making it just educational and informative so it's worth their time just to learn. Why is the cloud safe to host my access control system? Why is that safe? Why can I rely on that monitoring center? How do I know they'll do what I ask them to do? So everything that you need to get it started. And then a checklist. How do I continue to get this message out? What should I do with social media? How can I update my website? Because your customers go on your website, they see, do they have anything new? If you don't have any fresh content on there, fresh pictures that articulate and illustrate these new services that you have available, they're not going to know you have it. So we have a kit that gives you the pictures, all of the text, and all the stuff that you need to make your web presence effective. So that is that program. Then we also have a sales manual. So for you sales folks out there talking up these services, this program gives you a booklet that you can create for each of your customers or prospects. And it takes you step by step, the consultative selling process checklist. And it shows you, what are the questions I need to ask to make sure that the technology all works? How do I get this information to my project manager or my system designer so they can make sure that what we're putting in or adding to the system will be effective? What other, questions should I be asking to make sure that, we're completely aware of the environment that this facility is in? How do I decide or assess their needs and identify the type of service that they need? How do I talk to them about their business and really show them the value of the different services that we offer? So these are just a few specific, if they're protecting outdoor assets, this is a brochure you can take to them. If they're a property management company, this is a brochure for them. If they're trying to figure out the benefits of hosted and managed services as compared to traditional, this is a way of showing them that evolution. That's hosted access, and this is hosted and managed video. Okay, so it's really that simple. It's pretty cool, actually. We just launched, and it's in its primitive phase, so I'm surprised I'm even telling you this, but if you guys have a Droid, an Android, go to the Play Store, the Google Play Store, which is their market, and search for Integrator Support Sales. And when you find the IS logo, you'll see we have an app. And basically, we have all of these different brochures and checklists and things available to you on your mobile device, so you can take advantage. Again, the summary of the services, I'm not trying to do a whole bunch of sales pitch, just want you to know how you can take advantage of us. But this talks about the services. But in the app, you'll be able to have some key talking points so you can remember what makes hosted different than traditional, what makes remote guarding better than self-monitored video systems. And on our website, we've updated a few things as well. We have a mobile optimized website. So the key is here that your customers want mobile. You also need mobile. You need information in your pocket when you're there at the facility. So the site is mobile optimized. You can request a quote. You can request technical support. You can submit a purchase order, all online or from the convenience of your phone. So check out that app. That's just an example of something that we're working on to provide value, make this transition for you all simpler and smoother. So that's the key. If you're unfamiliar with our website, it's just integratorsupport.com. Please just go ahead and check it out. And with that, I'm going to summarize. I'm just going to pull up. I think you guys have a few questions. See what questions you have. If you haven't typed in your question yet, now is the time to do that. So just give me a moment to read through the ones that I've received so far. Oh, excellent question. So this question, I'm just going to read it as it was written. When developing a solutions-based program, is or should any specific attention be placed on the profit margin of the equipment versus the service? Meaning, are there concessions placed on the front of selling the equipment in order to secure the recurring revenue from an ongoing service? Absolutely. I was actually out at a dealer location during the ESX show talking about that very thing and their sales strategy and how can we be sure that, we're competitive and that, how do we secure that ongoing monthly fee when there's that upfront investment too. So what we're recommending, or the model that most other managed services industries use, is that you do the installation and provide the equipment at break even. Okay? And wow, well, that's probably really scary for everybody. But if you do it at break even and then you make your margins higher on the back end, you're going to be more competitive up front, which in a lot of cases is what people are looking at, the dollars and cents up front. And it keeps you, in a spot to make up that margin on the back end. Now, on the other side, going back to like the project financing discussion, making sure though that as much as possible you guys just quote a monthly payment, because then what happens is that gross margin, it's not part of their equation. They're not looking at line by line each SKU, each item that you guys are providing to them and comparing the exact same thing dollars for dollars with somebody else's bid, because it won't look the same. They won't be able to do that. Now, they might ask you, they might say, you know, we're having a hard time figuring this out. Can you please send us the interest rate? Can you please, you know, let us know what that was? And my advice to you guys in that scenario would be, don't give up the information. Don't do it, because if you're really going to transition into a service-based culture and sales model, then it means that you guys truly believe that the service is exactly what they need and that that is what you're there to provide. And without it, it's out the window. Now, if you can't, you know, I understand that that transition is tough if you really need that deal, or if you think that they still want the service, but they don't necessarily want to do the financing, which is possible, which is fine, you know, go ahead and do it. But I caution you guys on giving up too much information because they might just try to, you know, find a workaround or beat you guys down. But yes, if you can, if your model allows for you guys to do the installation and the equipment at break even or at a smaller margin, at least make it smaller than you typically make, you know, you'll be more competitive. All right, let me see what the next question is. Oh, asking about the app. Just make sure you type in integrator support and then sales. There's a lot of integrator support type things for IT professionals out there, so you do need that word sales at the end when you're searching the Android. And that's the last question I've received. I know we've gone, I was probably about 10 or 15 minutes over on just the presentation piece. I apologize for that, everybody. But thank you for your time today. I hope it was valuable. You'll receive an email from GoToWebinar after we conclude this session asking you to send your feedback our way. Please do. Please reply to that email and send any kind of feedback, because if there's something that we should have talked about that we didn't, if there's something you need that we don't have, if you want to become a dealer or if you need more information or anything, we are all ears. So please do just reply to that email, let me know what you're thinking, or visit our website and request to become a dealer, and we'll be happy to work with you on that. Thanks again for your time, everybody. We look forward to working with you. Bye-bye.